I just came from a meeting today in the Situation Room in which I've got people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he...
A man stood up at a town hall and accused Barack Obama of secretly plotting to confiscate guns from law-abiding Americans. Obama's response: more guns were legally sold during his presidency than almost any other period in American history. Both of those things cannot be true at the same time. And Obama didn't stop there. He revealed that Congress has actively banned the CDC from studying gun violence as a public health issue. By law, the data isn't even allowed to be collected. He also disclosed that known ISIS sympathizers, tracked and barred from flying by the FBI's own no-fly list, are still legally permitted to walk into a gun store and buy as many weapons as they want. This wasn't a talking point. This was a sitting president laying out, in real time, exactly how the gun lobby has blocked basic public safety measures for decades. I'm Caleb Morgan. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button because we do not flinch and we do not let that slide. Let's get into it.
So good guys, why then do you and Hillary want to control and restrict and limit gun manufacturers, gun owners, and the responsible use of guns and ammunition to the rest of us, the good guys, instead of holding the bad guys accountable for their actions? And Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to use Chicago, your hometown, a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, a city that for decades and still is under Democratic control, a city that has an outrageous and even embarrassing murder rate as my first example. Why can't we round up these thugs, these drug dealers and gang members, and hold them accountable for their actions, or allow the good people in Chicago access to firearms to protect themselves?
Good. All right. Well, let me, it's a multi-part question, so let me just say a couple things. First of all, the notion that I or Hillary or Democrats or whoever you want to choose are hell-bent on taking away folks' guns is just not true. And I don't care how many times the NRA says it. I'm about to leave office. There have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history. There are enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country. And at no point have I ever proposed confiscating guns from responsible gun owners. So it's just not true. What I have said is precisely what you suggested, which is, why don't we treat this like every other thing that we use? We used to have really bad auto fatality rates. The auto fatality rate has actually dropped precipitously, drastically, since I was a kid. Why is that? We decided we had seatbelt laws. We decided to have manufacturers put airbags in place. We decided to crack down on drunk driving and texting. We decided to redesign roads so that they were less likely to have a car bank. We studied what is causing these fatalities using science and data and evidence, and then we slowly treated it like the public health problem it was, and it got reduced. We are not allowed to do any of that when it comes to guns, because people, if you propose anything, it is suggested that we're trying to wipe away gun rights and impose tyranny and martial law. Do you know that Congress will not allow the Center for Disease Control to study gun violence? They're not allowed to study it because the notion is that by studying it the same way we do with traffic accidents, somehow that's going to lead to everybody's guns being confiscated. When we talked about background checks, if you buy a car, if you want to get a license, first of all, you got to get a license. You have to take a test. People have to know that you know how to drive. You don't have to do any of that with respect to buying a gun. And when we talked about doing effective background checks, it was resisted because the notion was we were going to take your guns away. I just came from a meeting today in the Situation Room in which I've got people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he wants to walk in to a gun store or a gun show right now and buy as many weapons as ammo as he can, nothing's prohibiting him from doing that, even though the FBI knows who that person is. So, sir, I just have to say respectfully that there is a way for us to have common sense gun laws. There is a way for us to make sure that lawful, responsible gun owners like yourself are able to use it for sporting, hunting, protecting yourself. But the only way we're going to do that is if we don't have a situation in which anything that is proposed is viewed as some tyrannical destruction of the Second Amendment. And that's how the issue too often gets framed.
Let's start with the premise this guy walked in with, because it collapses the second you check it against reality. He accused Obama and Democrats of being hell-bent on confiscating guns from law-abiding citizens. And Obama didn't just deny it. He handed over the actual data. More firearms were legally sold during his presidency than almost any other stretch in American history. Enough guns in circulation for every single man, woman, and child in the country. If the goal was secretly disarming America, that is, by any honest measure, the least effective confiscation campaign in the history of confiscation campaigns, the premise doesn't hold up. It never did. It's a myth that gets repeated so often, it starts to feel like fact. And Obama simply refused to let it stand unchallenged. Then he does something genuinely smart, and it's the part more people need to actually sit with. The car safety comparison. Because it's not a gotcha, it's just how we've handled literally every other public safety issue in this country. Cars used to kill people at staggering rates. Nobody banned cars. We looked at the data. We required seatbelts. We mandated airbags. We cracked down on drunk driving. We redesigned intersections. And deaths dropped drastically, without anyone losing their car. That's the entire model for how a functioning society treats a public health problem. Study it. Adjust based on what the data shows. Reduce the harm. And Obama's point lands hard because gun policy in this country isn't allowed to follow that same basic process. Not because the process doesn't work, but because the moment it's proposed, it gets branded as tyranny. And here's the part that should make anyone, regardless of party, stop and think. Congress has made it illegal for the CDC to even study gun violence as a public health issue. Not restricted, not defunded, banned. Think about what that actually means. The same institution that studies car crashes, foodborne illness, and infectious disease outbreaks is legally blocked from applying that same rigor to the leading cause of death for American children. That's not an accident of bureaucracy. That's a deliberate policy choice. made because certain people are terrified of what the data might actually show, and terrified enough to make sure we're never even allowed to look. Then Obama drops the detail that should honestly be the headline of this entire clip. An American citizen, known to the FBI, flagged for sympathizing with ISIS, barred from boarding a commercial flight under the no-fly list, and still, under existing law, completely free to walk into a gun store and buy as many weapons as he wants. Sit with that contradiction for a second. We have decided, as a country, that this person is too dangerous to sit next to on an airplane. But current law says he's not too dangerous to own a semi-automatic rifle. That's not a hypothetical loophole. That's the actual functioning state of federal law, described by a sitting president who had just walked out of a security briefing about it that same morning. And this is really the whole exchange in miniature. A man stands up convinced he's caught Obama in some hidden agenda, and what he actually gets in return is a president calmly dismantling the premise with verified data, a functional public safety model that's worked in every other context, and a live national security gap that current law refuses to close. Obama didn't dodge the question. He didn't get defensive. He met it directly and left the man with nothing to come back with, because there wasn't a counter-argument to give. This is what it looks like when someone actually understands the difference between fear-based rhetoric and evidence-based policy. And it's a reminder of exactly why the gun debate keeps getting stuck. Not because common sense solutions don't exist, but because raising them at all gets treated as an attack on freedom itself. So tell me, did this change how you think about the "they're coming for your guns" argument? Or do you think the guy at the mic still had a point buried in there somewhere? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. If you want more breakdowns like this, grounded in the actual record, no spin, no flinching, hit subscribe. I'm Caleb Morgan, and I'll see you in the next one.